I'm Sue from Sue Pellin Designs, and today I'd like to talk to you about rotary cut applique. I've developed this method for cutting my applique with a rotary cutter because I love applique, but I don't like to take all the time to mark out that applique and cut it out with scissors and do that tedious needle turn technique. So I've developed this method so I can rotary cut my applique in a fraction of the time. Now, in order to do rotary cut applique, I've developed some tools that make it very easy. The Leaves Galore templates are made so that you can follow the edges of your templates with your rotary cutter and get accurately shaped applique pieces every time. The templates come in 3 different sizes, a small, a medium, and a large template that give you 6 different curves to work with. Now, in order to rotary cut my applique, the first step is to prepare my fabric. I love using Misty Fuse. Misty Fuse is the fusible that I prefer using for applique. It's very soft and lightweight, and it comes just like this, as a web of fibers with no chemicals to get in the way. It's just fusible, and there's no paper backing. But we don't need that paper backing because we're going to be cutting our applique with our rotary cutter and our templates as our guide, so we don't need to mark the back of the fabric. So I'd like to show you how to apply the fusible to the back of your fabric. You can purchase the Misty Fuse in 2.5 yard or 10-yard packages, as well as by the roll. This is a roll of 100 yards of Misty Fuse, and that's the way I like to buy my Misty Fuse. In addition to the Misty Fuse, you will need a pressing sheet. The pressing sheet that I prefer is the Goddess sheet made by Misty Fuse. If you already have a pressing sheet at home, you can use the sheet that you already have. The Goddess sheet comes in 2 different sizes. This one is the fat Goddess sheet, and it's 21 inches by 27 inches, so you can press an entire fat quarter of fabric at one time. So what I do is I lay out the pressing sheet on my work surface. Now this just protects my work surface so I don't get any stray Misty Fuse onto my pressing cloth. However, you really only need 1 applique pressing sheet to put over your work. We're going to be placing the Misty Fuse on top of our fabric with the fabric the pretty side down. So if you have a printed fabric, it would go printed side down, but I'm using a batik and both sides are beautiful. So I can just lay the Misty Fuse over the back of that fabric and cut the fusible to the same size as the fabric or just slightly smaller. Now, because I'm using 2 pressing sheets, I don't need to worry about excess fusible going onto my pressing surface, so I'm not going to be too careful about cutting it to the right size. But I'm going to lay that applique pressing sheet right over the top of the fabric and fusible. The applique pressing sheet will protect my iron, and I'm using a very hot iron, and I'm just going to press that fusible on for a few seconds. Now, how do you know when you've pressed that fusible long enough? Well, I'm just going to press it for a few seconds, and I'm going to test my fusible to see if I've pressed it long enough by peeling up one corner of the pressing sheet and peeling it away slowly. Now, as I'm peeling that pressing sheet away, I'm watching to see if any of the fibers are sticking to the pressing sheet or if they're all sticking to the fabric. You can see right here that some of the fibers are sticking to the pressing sheet and not sticking to the fabric. If I see that, then I know I need to lay that pressing sheet down again and press that area a little longer. Now, one of the benefits of using Misty Fuse is you really can't overheat the Misty Fuse. The Misty Fuse has a very high tolerance for heat, so you're not going to worry about pressing it too long and losing your fuse like some of the other fusibles that are out there. So again, we're peeling away our pressing sheet, making sure that all of the fibers are stuck to the fabric and not to the sheet. Now that looks perfect. Now, I didn't use steam while I was pressing, and the reason is this Teflon coated fiberglass sheet is not going to allow steam to permeate the sheet. So if you are using steam, it's just going to come right back at you and you have the risk of burning yourself. So I use an iron that doesn't even have steam holes on the bottom. It's just a dry iron. Now this fabric will be a little bit tacky at this point because it's still warm. If the fabric folds back on itself, it may stick to itself. So we don't want to use this fabric for 15 minutes. We're just going to let it rest and let it cool while we go and press the rest of our fabric and get it ready for applique. And then you can cut it easily with your rotary cutter. I already have some fabrics prepared, so we're going to move on to cutting our applique with our rotary cutter with the fabric that's already cooled for more than 15 minutes.